The gentle rays of the morning sun bathed the serene fields of Grayston Valley, highlighting a picturesque farm nestled in its heart. This farm, owned by the humble farmer Eli Turner, had seen better days. Passed down through generations, the land once symbolized prosperity but now barely supported Eli's modest life amid mounting debts and failing crops. For years, Eli struggled to keep the farm afloat, relying on his small flock of chickens and a few rows of crops to make ends meet. His once vibrant fields were now overrun with weeds, and the weight of his family's legacy pressed heavily on his shoulders. His wife had passed away years earlier, and the only comfort he found was in the simple routine of tending to his land. One chilly spring morning, as Eli began his usual rounds of checking on his chickens, something caught his eye near the far end of the field, a faint glimmer reflected from the dew-covered grass. Intrigued, he walked closer, his boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. What he found left him frozen in place. Lying in a small depression in the field was an egg, an enormous egg, easily 3 times the size of any chicken egg he had ever seen. Its shell was a pale pearlescent white with subtle swirling patterns that seemed almost otherworldly. For a moment, Eli wondered if it was some kind of elaborate prank, but as he knelt down and touched the egg, the warmth emanating from it convinced him otherwise. "What kind of bird lays an egg like this?" he murmured, his calloused fingers gently brushing the surface. His first instinct was caution. Could it belong to a wild predator? Was it safe to move? But his curiosity soon got the better of him. With care, Eli carried the egg back to the farmhouse and placed it in a makeshift nest lined with straw. He didn't know what kind of creature lay inside, but deep down, he sensed that this discovery might be the sign he had been waiting for, a chance to turn his life around. Little did he know, the arrival of the egg would set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. The massive egg became the centerpiece of Eli Turner's modest home, nestled in a corner of the kitchen surrounded by straw. It radiated a gentle warmth that seemed almost alive. Eli couldn't shake the feeling that this egg was extraordinary, though it left him grappling with more questions than answers. He began his days like clockwork, checking on the egg, adjusting the warmth with an old heat lamp he had dug out of his barn, and muttering to himself about the possibilities. Could it be an ostrich? That didn't make sense. Ostriches weren't native to the area, and he had never seen one in Grayston Valley. Could it be a prank by some of the local kids? But how would they even manage to place such an egg without him noticing? His curiosity quickly turned into obsession. At the local feed store, he asked old-timers and fellow farmers about the egg, hoping someone could provide an explanation. "Never heard of anything like it," one elderly man said, shaking his head. "If you're lucky, it's worth something. If you're unlucky, well, I keep a rifle nearby just in case." Eli chuckled nervously, but the words stayed with him. What kind of creature could come from an egg so large? Was he putting himself in danger by keeping it? Despite the warnings, he couldn't bring himself to discard it. Something about the egg felt important. One evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, Eli heard the crunch of tires on gravel. He glanced out the window to see an unfamiliar truck pulling into his driveway. A tall man in a weathered jacket stepped out, his boots thudding against the ground as he approached the farmhouse. "Eli Turner?" the man asked, his voice deep and serious. "I am Dr. Ian Caldwell, a biologist. I heard through the grapevine you found something unusual." Eli hesitated but finally nodded. Word traveled fast in a small town, and he figured it was only a matter of time before someone came poking around. He led the man into the house, where Dr. Caldwell's eyes immediately locked onto the egg. "My God," the biologist whispered, crouching down to inspect it. "Do you have any idea what this could be?" "No," Eli admitted. "I was hoping you'd tell me." Dr. Caldwell pulled out a small device, scanning the egg's surface. "The heat it's generating, this isn't normal. And these markings, look at them closely, they resemble patterns found in fossils from millions of years ago." Eli frowned. "Fossils? What are you saying?" Dr. Caldwell hesitated, his expression unreadable. "I'm not saying anything for sure, but if this egg is what I think it might be, well, you might have something that's been extinct for a very, very long time." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Eli felt a mix of disbelief and excitement. Extinct? Could this be the miracle he had been praying for? Over the following weeks, Eli found himself growing more attached to the mysterious egg. He spent hours sitting by its side, talking to it as if it could hear him. Dr. Caldwell came and went, running tests and taking notes, but the biologist offered no definitive answers. One morning, as Eli adjusted the heat lamp, he noticed something unusual, a faint vibration. Startled, he leaned in closer. The egg shifted slightly, a soft tapping sound emanating from within. His heart raced. "It's happening," Dr. Caldwell said when Eli called him. "The hatching process has started." Eli could hardly contain his anticipation. He sat by the egg day and night, barely sleeping as the faint tapping grew louder. Finally, late one night, the shell began to crack with a sound like breaking glass. The egg split open, and Eli's breath caught in his throat. A creature unlike anything he had ever seen emerged, its tiny body slick and glistening, with large, intelligent eyes that blinked up at him, a soft covering of downy feathers, and claws that looked both delicate and powerful. Dr. Caldwell, who had rushed over as soon as the egg started to hatch, stared in awe. This isn't possible. What is it?" Eli asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Caldwell knelt down, his eyes wide with amazement. "It looks like a species of dinosaur, a theropod, maybe, but it's small, like a bird. I've never seen anything like it." Eli couldn't believe what he was hearing, a dinosaur in his kitchen. The hatchling let out a soft chirp, its tiny claws grasping at the air. Without thinking, Eli reached out his hand, and the creature nuzzled against his palm, its warmth seeping into his skin. "It's bonded with you," Dr. Caldwell said. "You're the first thing it saw when it hatched. As far as it's concerned, you're its parent." Eli's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and responsibility. He cradled the tiny creature in his hands, marveling at its fragility and strength. In that moment, he knew his life would never be the same. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, the hatchling began to explore its surroundings. It waddled clumsily on its tiny legs, chirping curiously as it inspected everything from Eli's boots to the edge of the table. Its feathery down shimmered in the light, and Eli couldn't help but smile at its innocent curiosity. Dr. Caldwell returned later that afternoon, carrying several cases of equipment. "Eli, we need to talk. I've sent some preliminary data to a few trusted colleagues, and their responses have been alarming." Eli furrowed his brow, glancing at the hatchling, which was now perched precariously on a chair, pecking at the leg of the table. "Alarming? How?" Dr. Caldwell set his equipment down and pulled out a tablet, showing Eli a series of charts and images. "Based on the structure of the egg and some genetic material I've managed to analyze, this creature, whatever it is, has traits that match extinct theropod dinosaurs. But here's the twist, it's not purely prehistoric." "What do you mean?" Eli asked, feeling a chill creep up his spine. Dr. Caldwell hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "There's evidence of genetic manipulation. Someone, or something, engineered this creature. It's not just a dinosaur, it's a hybrid." The words hit Eli like a hammer. "Engineered? You're saying someone created this thing? Why?" "I don't know," Caldwell admitted. "But it explains why the egg ended up here on your farm. Whoever created it might have been testing it, or worse, trying to hide it. And now that it's hatched, they might come looking for it." Eli's protective instincts kicked in immediately. He looked over at the hatchling, now chirping happily as it tried to climb onto the counter. "Nobody's taking this little guy away. He's staying here with me." Dr. Caldwell nodded, though his expression remained grim. "I understand how you feel, Eli. But this is bigger than both of us. If someone engineered this creature, they could pose a danger, not just to it, but to us, too." Over the next few days, the hatchling's behavior grew increasingly strange. While it was mostly playful and affectionate, there were moments when its instincts seemed to take over. One afternoon, Eli found it staring out the window, its tiny body rigid and its feathers bristling. It let out a low, guttural growl, an entirely new sound that sent shivers down Eli's spine. "What's gotten into you, little guy?" he asked, approaching cautiously. The hatchling relaxed as soon as Eli placed a hand on its back, but the moment stuck with him. Was the creature sensing something he couldn't? That night, as Eli prepared for bed, he heard rustling outside. Grabbing a flashlight, he stepped onto the porch and scanned the dark fields. At first, he saw nothing but swaying grass, but then he spotted it, a shadowy figure moving near the edge of his property. "Hey!" Eli shouted, his voice cutting through the night. The figure froze for a moment before darting out of sight. Eli's heart raced as he hurried back inside, locking the doors and checking on the hatchling, which was now curled up in a makeshift nest in the living room. "What's going on here?" he muttered, his mind racing with possibilities. The next morning, Dr. Caldwell arrived with news. "Eli, I think we've got a lead. I cross-referenced some of the genetic markers from the hatchling with data from a private database. It looks like the DNA was spliced using technology that's not available to the general public. Whoever did this had resources, serious resources." Eli frowned. You're saying this isn't just some rogue scientist messing around? This is big, very big. Caldwell confirmed, and I think that shadow you saw last night might have been someone looking for the egg, or the creature. The two men decided to set up cameras around the farm to monitor for any unusual activity. Meanwhile, the hatchling continued to grow at an astonishing rate. Within just a week, it had doubled in size, its feathers darkening and taking on an iridescent sheen. Its claws grew sharper, and its movements became more precise, almost calculated. Despite the rapid growth, the bond between Eli and the hatchling deepened. The creature followed him everywhere, chirping happily whenever Eli spoke to it. It even started responding to its name, Talon, a moniker Eli had chosen after watching it skillfully catch a moth in midair. Talon, Eli said one evening as they sat on the porch together, the creature nestled at his side. I don't know where you came from, but you're part of this family now. I'll protect you, no matter what. Just as Eli began to feel a sense of normalcy returning, a black SUV pulled into his driveway one afternoon. Two men in suits stepped out, their expressions cold and professional. Eli's stomach dropped as they approached the house. Mr. Turner, one of them said, flashing a badge, we're with the Department of Wildlife and Environmental Affairs. We've received reports of an unusual animal on your property. Mind if we take a look? Eli's mind raced. He knew these men weren't who they claimed to be. Their polished shoes and crisp suits screamed government, or worse, private contractors hired by whoever created Talon. I'm sorry, Eli said, forcing a casual tone. I don't know what you're talking about. Just regular chickens and cows here. The men exchanged a glance before the other one spoke. Would still like to take a look around, for public safety. Eli stood his ground. You're going to need a warrant for that. The men hesitated, their polite facade slipping for just a moment. We'll be back, one of them said before turning to leave. As the SUV disappeared down the road, Eli's heart pounded in his chest. He knew this was only the beginning. Whoever those men were, they weren't going to stop until they found what they were looking for. Eli knew he couldn't afford to wait for the men to return. Their polished professionalism had unnerved him, and he felt the urgency to protect Talon. He paced the living room, glancing at the hatchling, now growing faster than he had ever thought possible. Talon was no longer the fragile creature he had found. Its sharp claws clicked softly on the hardwood floor, and its watchful eyes followed Eli's every move. They'll come back, Eli muttered to himself. And next time, they won't be asking nicely. Dr. Caldwell arrived later that evening, his expression grim as Eli recounted the visit. This confirms our suspicions, Caldwell said, rubbing his temple. These men aren't from any legitimate wildlife agency. They're likely connected to whoever created Talon. Then what do we do? Eli asked, his voice tinged with desperation. I can't let them take him. His family now. Caldwell nodded, understanding the emotional bond that had formed between Eli and the creature. We need to keep him hidden, but more importantly, we need to find out who's behind this. The only way to protect Talon is to expose the truth. Over the next few days, Eli and Caldwell worked tirelessly to safeguard the farm. They installed more cameras and reinforced the barn, converting it into a secure space for Talon to roam freely. Caldwell also reached out to trusted colleagues, hoping to uncover any leads on the genetic engineering involved in Talon's creation. Meanwhile, Talon's growth showed no signs of slowing. The once tiny hatchling now stood as tall as Eli's knee, its feathers gleaming with an almost otherworldly sheen. Its movements were graceful yet powerful, and it seemed to understand Eli's words more than he had thought possible. Talon, Eli said one afternoon, crouching to meet the creature's gaze, you've got to stay out of sight, okay? Those men, they're dangerous. The creature tilted its head, letting out a low chirp that sounded almost like acknowledgement. Eli couldn't help but smile despite the tension. Good boy. One evening, Caldwell burst into the farmhouse, holding a stack of papers and his tablet. Eli, I found something, he said, his voice a mix of excitement and concern. He spread the documents across the kitchen table, pointing to a series of diagrams and coded entries. There's a biotech company, Jora Labs, that's been quietly experimenting with hybrid animals. They've been using remote locations for their projects, often abandoning them when they are done. It's possible that Talon's egg was part of one of their experiments. Eli leaned over the table, scanning the papers. So, they just leave these creatures behind like garbage. Caldwell sighed. It's worse than that. If an experiment is deemed a failure or too risky, they dispose of it. Talon might have been a test subject that escaped, or was deliberately hidden. Eli's fists clenched. And now they want him back? Not happening. Caldwell placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. We'll fight this, but we need more proof. If we can expose what they've been doing, they won't just come after Talon, they'll have to answer to the public. The peaceful evenings on the farm became rare as Eli and Caldwell remained on high alert. The cameras occasionally picked up movement near the perimeter, but nothing definitive. Still, Eli couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. One night, as Eli sat on the porch, Talon suddenly bolted upright, its feathers bristling. A low growl rumbled from its throat, unlike any sound Eli had heard before. "What is it, boy?" Eli whispered, standing to follow Talon's gaze. The creature's sharp eyes were fixed on the tree line at the edge of the property. Moments later, a faint glimmer of light appeared, a flashlight. Eli's heart pounded as he realized someone was trespassing. Grabbing his shotgun, he motioned for Talon to stay put and crept toward the source of the light. As he approached, he heard hushed voices. "We can't leave without it," one voice said, frustration evident. "The boss wants results," another replied. "Who's there?" Eli barked, stepping out of the shadows. The intruders froze, their flashlights illuminating their startled faces. They wore dark uniforms, unmarked but clearly professional. One of them raised his hands, a forced smile on his face. "Easy there, farmer. We're just surveying the area." "Get off my land," Eli growled, aiming the shotgun squarely at the man's chest. The men hesitated, glancing at each other before retreating. "We'll be back," one of them muttered as they disappeared into the darkness. Eli stood there for a long moment, his hands shaking as adrenaline coursed through him. When he finally returned to the house, Talon was waiting by the door, its sharp eyes filled with an uncanny understanding. "They're not giving up," Eli said softly, running a hand through his hair. "But neither am I." Despite the danger, the bond between Eli and Talon deepened. The creature seemed to sense Eli's emotions, offering comfort in its own way. It would nuzzle against him when he was stressed and follow him loyally around the farm, never straying far. One afternoon, as Eli repaired a fence on the far side of the property, Talon suddenly darted ahead, its keen senses picking up on something. Eli watched as it stopped near a patch of dirt, scratching at the ground. "What did you find now?" Eli muttered, walking over. To his surprise, Talon unearthed a strange metallic device, a small camouflaged camera. "They're spying on us," Eli realized, his anger boiling over. He crushed the device under his boot, determined to send a message. As the days passed, the tension grew. Eli and Caldwell knew the intruders would return, likely with more force. They worked tirelessly to strengthen their defenses and gather evidence against Jora Labs. Meanwhile, Talon continued to grow, its once clumsy movements now replaced with the grace and power of a predator. But even in the midst of the chaos, there were moments of peace. Eli would sit on the porch with Talon by his side, watching the sunset and wondering what the future held. No matter what came next, he was determined to protect the creature that had become his family. The discovery of the hidden camera deepened Eli's resolve but also complicated matters. Whoever was watching them wasn't just trespassing, they were collecting information, likely for a more coordinated effort. Caldwell suggested taking the camera to a trusted contact in town, someone who could trace its origin and uncover who was behind the surveillance. Eli hesitated at first. The fewer people who knew about Talon, the safer they'd be, but Caldwell was insistent. "We need allies, Eli. If this goes public, Jora Labs, or whoever they are, will be forced to back off." Reluctantly, Eli agreed. The next morning, Caldwell drove into town, leaving Eli alone on the farm with Talon. It was a quiet day, the kind that made the looming threat seem almost like a bad dream. Eli spent the morning tending to his crops, his ever-growing companion close at hand. Talon had become his shadow, always watching, always alert. That evening, as Eli prepared dinner, there was a knock at the door. He froze, his mind flashing back to the trespassers. Grabbing his shotgun, he approached cautiously and peered through the window. To his surprise, it wasn't one of the men from before. It was a young woman in her mid-20s, dressed in casual but professional clothing. Eli opened the door a crack, keeping the shotgun visible. "Who are you, and what do you want?" The woman raised her hands in a gesture of peace. "My name is Dr. Vanessa Mercer. I work with a conservation group. Please, I'm not here to harm you. I need to warn you." Eli studied her for a moment, then reluctantly let her in. Once inside, Vanessa glanced around nervously, as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. "You're in danger," she began, her voice low. "The people after that creature, they won't stop. They don't care about laws or ethics. They only care about their experiments. How do you know about Talon? Eli demanded, his grip tightening on the shotgun. Vanessa hesitated, then sighed. Because I used to work for them, Jora Labs. I left when I saw what they were doing. Talon, he's not like anything else. He's part of a project they've been working on for years. They'll do anything to get him back. Vanessa explained that Jora Labs had been experimenting with advanced genetic engineering, blending DNA from different species to create hybrid animals with enhanced traits. Talon, she revealed, was one of their most ambitious creations, a hybrid between a bird of prey and a prehistoric reptile, designed to be both resilient and highly intelligent. They were supposed to destroy the eggs, Vanessa said, her voice heavy with guilt. But someone smuggled them out. I think one of the scientists couldn't bring themselves to let them be destroyed. That's probably how Talon ended up here. Eli's mind raced. The creature he had come to love wasn't just rare, it was one of a kind. Why are you helping me? He asked, his suspicion evident. Because what they are doing is wrong, Vanessa replied firmly. Talon deserves to live free, not be locked in a lab. And because... She hesitated, her gaze dropping. Because I owe it to him. I helped create him. Vanessa's arrival brought both clarity and complications. She offered to help Eli protect Talon, but it wouldn't be easy. Jora Labs had resources far beyond their own, and it was only a matter of time before they returned. We need evidence, Vanessa said. If we can expose what they are doing, they won't be able to come after you without risking public backlash. Caldwell returned later that evening, his face grim. The camera had taken into town had been traced back to a distributor commonly used by corporate security firms. It's definitely connected to Jora, he confirmed. The three of them sat around the kitchen table, forming a plan. Vanessa suggested reaching out to a journalist she trusted, someone who had previously exposed corporate wrongdoing. Caldwell would continue researching Jora's operations, while Eli would focus on keeping Talon hidden and safe. As the days passed, Talon continued to grow, both in size and intelligence. He had started mimicking some of Eli's behaviors, such as opening doors and fetching tools from the barn. His keen senses also made him an excellent watchdog, often alerting Eli to any unusual activity on the property. One evening, Eli took Talon for a walk along the edge of the field, hoping to clear his mind. The creature stayed close, its sharp eyes scanning the horizon as they walked. Eli couldn't help but marvel at how far Talon had come. What had started as a fragile, unhatched egg had become a magnificent, almost mythical creature. You're not just a pet, Eli said softly, stroking Talon's iridescent feathers. You're family. Their newfound sense of purpose was shattered one night when the farm came under attack. Eli was woken by Talon's piercing screech, followed by the sound of breaking glass. Grabbing his shotgun, he raced downstairs to find two masked intruders in the living room. Stay back. Eli shouted, aiming the weapon at them. One of the men lunged forward, but before Eli could react, Talon swooped down from the staircase, his talons outstretched. The creature let out a deafening cry as it tackled the intruder, knocking him to the ground. The second man hesitated, clearly unnerved by the sight of the fierce hybrid. Eli took advantage of the moment, firing a warning shot into the ceiling. Get out, he roared. The men fled, leaving behind a trail of broken glass and overturned furniture. Eli stood in the wreckage, his heart pounding. Talon landed beside him, his feathers ruffled but otherwise unharmed. You saved me, boy, Eli said, his voice shaking with a mix of fear and gratitude. We're in this together. The attack left Eli shaken but also solidified his resolve. Talon wasn't just a creature to protect, he was now a vital part of Eli's life, a partner, a guardian, and a beacon of hope. However, the incident raised new questions about the lengths Jora Labs would go to recapture Talon. Vanessa, Caldwell, and Eli regrouped the following morning, their nerves frayed but their determination stronger than ever. Eli noticed that Talon's presence had begun to transform the farm in unexpected ways. The hybrid creature wasn't just protective, he was also startlingly intuitive. Talon started helping with chores in his own unique way, dragging tools across the field with his powerful claws, chasing off pests that threatened the crops, and even guiding stray livestock back into the pens. His intelligence was undeniable, and Eli marveled at how seamlessly Talon adapted to farm life. Caldwell watched in awe one afternoon as Talon herded a group of sheep that had wandered too far. I've never seen anything like it, he remarked. It's like he understands what you're saying. He does, Eli replied with a proud smile. He's not just any animal. He's different. Vanessa nodded, her expression somber. That's exactly why they won't stop at anything to get him back. Talon represents everything Jorah wants: control, power, profit. But here, he's free. We have to keep it that way. Later that evening, as Vanessa helped Eli board up the broken windows from the attack, she shared more about her involvement with Jorah Labs. I didn't always agree with their methods, she admitted. But I stayed because I thought I could make a difference from the inside. When I saw what they were doing to creatures like Talon, I couldn't stay any longer. Eli paused, leaning on his hammer. You're risking a lot by helping us. Why? Vanessa hesitated before answering. Because I believe Talon is more than just an experiment. His proof that humanity can create something extraordinary without destroying it. If we can protect him, maybe we can show the world there's a better way. Eli's gaze softened. His family now. I don't care what they want. Talon's not going anywhere. Despite their united front, the weight of the situation bore down on Eli. The farm was his livelihood, but it was also becoming a battlefield. He feared for Talon's safety, but even more, he feared losing the creature who had brought so much purpose back into his life. The next morning, Eli decided to test just how much Talon understood. He took the creature out to the farthest field, where the wheat stretched tall and golden under the morning sun. Eli held up a stick and tossed it into the distance. Go on, boy. Fetch. Talon tilted his head, his bright eyes flicking between Eli and the stick. After a moment, he bounded forward, his powerful legs carrying him swiftly across the field. He returned moments later, the stick clenched carefully in his beak. Eli laughed, clapping his hands. Good boy. You're full of surprises, aren't you? Talon chirped softly, leaning his head against Eli's shoulder in a gesture of affection. For a moment, all of Eli's fears melted away. This wasn't just a creature created in a lab, it was a living, breathing being with emotions, instincts, and a capacity for connection that rivaled any humans. As much as Eli cherished his bond with Talon, the secrecy surrounding him began to take a toll. He couldn't risk letting anyone else on the farm, not even his closest neighbors. Questions about his sudden reclusiveness started to circulate, and Eli found himself dodging phone calls and avoiding town altogether. One afternoon, Caldwell confronted him. You can't keep hiding forever, Eli. People are going to start asking questions. I'm doing what I have to do, Eli shot back. If they find out about Talon, it's over. Caldwell sighed. I get it. But isolating yourself isn't the answer. You need allies, people you can trust. Vanessa chimed in, he's right. If we're going to stand up to Jorah, we need more than just the three of us. We need to show the world what Talon represents before they can twist the narrative. Eli considered their words but remained conflicted. Trusting others meant risking Talon's safety. Could he take that chance? That night, as the trio gathered around the kitchen table to strategize, Talon let out a low growl from his spot near the back door. His feathers ruffled, and his piercing eyes fixed on the darkness outside. What is it, boy? Eli asked, rising cautiously. Vanessa grabbed a flashlight, and the three of them stepped onto the porch. The beam of light cut through the night, revealing tire tracks leading up to the barn. Someone's been watching us, Caldwell muttered, his jaw tightening. Eli clenched his fists. Let them. If they want to fight, we'll give them one. Vanessa placed a hand on his shoulder. We need to be smart about this, Eli. Talon's survival depends on it. The intrusion marked a turning point for Eli. He realized that keeping Talon a secret wasn't just about protecting the creature, it was about standing up against a system that sought to exploit and destroy for profit. Talon's existence was a symbol of resilience, a reminder that life was meant to be free. As the night stretched on, Eli, Vanessa, and Caldwell solidified their plan. They would gather evidence of Jorah's illegal activities and reach out to trusted allies who could help expose the truth. It was a risky move, but it was the only way to ensure Talon's future. In the shadows, Talon watched them, his bright eyes filled with understanding. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The morning after discovering the tire tracks, Eli woke with a gnawing sense of unease. Talon's instincts had proven right before, and now the evidence of surveillance made it clear Jorah Labs was closing in. Vanessa and Caldwell joined him at the breakfast table, their expressions mirroring his concern. Vanessa, sipping her coffee, spoke first. I've been thinking. If they've already found the farm, it's only a matter of time before they make their move. Eli nodded grimly. We can't wait for them to strike. We need to be proactive. Before they could solidify their plan, the sound of a vehicle approaching the property interrupted them. Eli glanced at Vanessa and Caldwell, his face hardening. "Stay here. I'll handle this." As Eli stepped out onto the porch, a sleek black SUV came into view, kicking up dust as it rolled to a stop. The driver's door opened, and a man in a sharp suit emerged. His demeanor was polished but cold, his eyes scanning the property with calculated precision. "Mr. Turner, I presume," the man called out, his voice carrying a hint of menace. "I am Mr. Kane, representing Jora Labs. I believe you are in possession of something that belongs to us." Eli's jaw tightened, but he kept his composure. "I don't know what you're talking about." Kane's lips curled into a faint smile. "Let's not play games, Mr. Turner. We know about the egg, and we know what's hatched from it. Hand it over, and we can avoid any unpleasantness." Eli took a step forward, his stance firm. "You're trespassing. Get off my land." Kane's smile vanished, replaced by a steely glare. "Have it your way. But know this, you can't protect it forever. Jora always gets what it wants." With that, Kane returned to the SUV and drove off, leaving a cloud of dust and a chilling promise in his wake. Shaken but resolute, Eli returned to the house and relayed the encounter to Vanessa and Caldwell. "They're not going to stop," he said. "We need help." Vanessa nodded. "It's time to involve the community. If we can show them what's really going on, we might stand a chance." Reluctantly, Eli agreed. That evening, he and Caldwell visited a few trusted neighbors, carefully explaining the situation without revealing too much about Talon. They spoke of Jora's unethical practices and their attempts to exploit rural communities for profit. To their surprise, the neighbors were more supportive than Eli had anticipated. Many of them had their own grievances with large corporations encroaching on their livelihoods. "If you need us, we'll stand with you," one of them said firmly. "No company has the right to take what's yours." Back at the farm, Vanessa noticed Talon acting strangely. He was pacing near the barn, his sharp eyes fixed on the horizon. Curious, she followed him outside, where he stopped and stared intently at a patch of ground. "What is it, boy?" Vanessa asked, crouching beside him. Talon began to dig, his powerful claws tearing into the dirt with surprising precision. Within minutes, he uncovered a small metallic device, an electronic tracker. Vanessa's heart sank. Jora had planted it during their previous visit. She rushed back to the house, holding the device aloft. "They've been tracking him." Eli took the tracker and smashed it under his boot. "We have to act fast." Vanessa had an idea. "We can use this against them. Let's move Talon to a safe location and leave the tracker in a decoy spot. It'll buy us some time." That night, under the cover of darkness, the trio executed their plan. Caldwell drove out to a remote area, leaving the shattered tracker in an abandoned barn. Meanwhile, Eli and Vanessa led Talon to a heavily wooded section of the property, far from the house. They set up a makeshift shelter, ensuring he'd be safe and hidden. As they worked, Talon seemed to sense the gravity of the situation. He stayed close to Eli, his bright eyes scanning the surroundings. Eli knelt beside him, placing a reassuring hand on his feathers. "We'll get through this, boy. I promise." The decoy worked temporarily. The following morning, drones buzzed over the abandoned barn, and black SUVs swarmed the area. From their vantage point, Caldwell and Vanessa watched the scene unfold through binoculars. "They took the bait," Caldwell said, a hint of relief in his voice. "But it won't take them long to realize he's not there," Vanessa frowned. "We need to use this window of time to gather more evidence. If we can expose their operations, they won't be able to touch Talon without facing public backlash." Eli agreed. "Then let's get to work." As they prepared for the next phase of their plan, Eli took a moment to reflect on his bond with Talon. The creature had become more than a responsibility, he was a symbol of resilience and hope. Watching Talon playfully chase after a butterfly in the clearing, Eli felt a surge of determination. "We're not just fighting for him," he said aloud. "We're fighting for everything he represents." Vanessa, standing nearby, smiled. "Then let's make sure the world sees that." The days following the decoy operation were tense but productive. Eli, Vanessa, and Caldwell worked tirelessly to build their case against Jora Labs. The community's involvement gave them newfound strength, but the challenges ahead loomed large. They needed proof, irrefutable evidence of Jora's unethical practices and their attempts to claim Talon. While Vanessa was sorting through old documents in the farmhouse attic, she stumbled upon something extraordinary, a leather-bound journal belonging to Eli's grandfather. Inside were detailed notes and sketches of a similar egg found decades earlier on the very same farm. The entries described a creature that bore a striking resemblance to Talon. "Eli," Vanessa called, rushing downstairs with the journal. "You need to see this." Eli took the journal, his eyes scanning the faded handwriting. He knew about this. But why didn't he tell anyone? Vanessa pointed to a specific passage. The creature was hidden to protect it from those who sought to exploit its rarity. Its abilities are a gift, but they must never fall into the wrong hands. The discovery added a layer of mystery to their fight. Talon wasn't just an anomaly, he was part of a legacy, a secret Eli's family had been safeguarding for generations. Meanwhile, Caldwell continued to rally support from the community. He organized a meeting at the local town hall, where Eli and Vanessa shared their story, carefully omitting sensitive details about Talon. They explained how Jorah's actions threatened the farm and the broader ecosystem. "What they're doing isn't just wrong, it's dangerous," Eli said, his voice steady but impassioned. "They're tampering with forces they don't fully understand, and the